Hi, and I'm back with another video today. In my previous video, I mentioned that I wanted to talk about another article, but I didn't have time for it because it was way too much of a rant. So I just made that video and it's up now, so go ahead and watch it. Link in descriptions for article, video, everything else, sources that I use, obviously. So now the last article I want to talk about today is young American men are choosing video games over work in staggering numbers, and that's from Fortune.com. You know, Fortune magazine. They have their website, and that's what they wrote. Okay, when I read that, I'm like, that's clickbait, obviously. So I was kind of like bummed out. Said, another one of those articles. This article basically blames video games for the quote lack of productivity of young men. So they throw some stats at us. So let's look at those. So the first statistic they send is they tell us is in 2016, 15% of men between ages 21 to 30 are not working or in full-time education. So they're not working. Either they don't mention if it's part-time or full-time. So they're not working and they're not in full-time education. So they could be part-time education, I guess, but they don't count those. So just specifically not working and not full-time students. All right, so 15% of men. Okay. Um, there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, veterans coming home from wars, they can't really function well in society. They need to go through some steps to get better. The handicapped. They just throw everybody in there. You can also talk about the mentally handicapped kids that grew up to be 21 and 30. There are some social programs out there, but they aren't really considered in school or working, so that's part of it. Some even are stay-at-home husbands. That might be. Oh, that's probably a small percentage, but they just throw that out there. That's that. So we thought about that for a little bit. Also, could it be that since the Great Recession, which was in 2007, 2008, decent paying jobs have gone bye-bye? There's less of them. And if I can throw a bunch of stats to you, but you can look it up on your own. And there's a bunch of articles stating that the jobs are still decreasing in this country. But no, all of those reasons that I told you, no, those are don't think about that. It's video games. That's what this article is talking about. And then they compare that to 8% in 2000. So basically doubled, right? But look at the date that they compared, 2016 to 2000. 2000 was right before the internet bubble burst. If you guys are too young to remember, I remember in the late 90s, everything was .com. Everybody was having a startup company. And they inflated this internet bubble to the point where it became worthless. And then it exploded, just like the housing bubble did in 2008. And some people even say that the car loan bubble will burst in a couple of years, or a student loan bubble, which are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, so that was before that happened, and it was right before September 11th, 2001. I was a senior in high school when that happened, and I remember it. And after that, the economy kind of went down the crapper also. So look up what dates they specifically attack, right? All right, and it's weird. Like it's a weird date to go by. Oh, in 16 years. Usually 16 years are not common for a statistic separation. Usually it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 or 25 years actually, because 25 years is supposedly the number of years in one generation. 25 years. So in 25 years, a new generation takes over, and that's how statistics come about. And that's a verifiable fact. You can look that up if you want. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Maybe people are not going to school because it's so damn expensive now. And the great jobs that were once there after college are no longer there. I've lived through that. I got a degree in engineering, and it took forever to get an engineering job, which is not actually in my field, but at least I got an engineering job, and I should be grateful, right? But that's what they're saying basically. People are saying, not this article. So I went through that, and I can see why other people would lose hope and give up on searching for a job that either they deserve or feel that they want. And if you just take whatever you get, if you don't complain too much, if you're grateful for the little scraps that they throw at you, the billionaires will make more money off you. So be grateful for what little you have, or else we would fire you and we'll get somebody else. We'll get a machine to do your job, or we'll export a job to China or some other country. Okay. The article does state that that better tech has made video games a ton better, and that makes up for 79% of the difference. I don't know how the hell they were able to say, because of better technology, people are staying at home, and 79% of those people are staying at home because of that reason. I just find that hard to believe, but they do state that. So that's the second stat. The third stat is that 67% of non-working young men live with a parent or relative. Well, no shit. If you can't work, you're either homeless because you can't pay for anything, or you live with the relatives that can help you out. And I've actually gone through that too. So they cite 520 hours a year on average on the computer. Well, yeah, everything is done on computers now. I don't understand why, But the article does state that these people, these guys specifically, males, not women, because women aren't supposed to work anyway, right? That's what basically this article is saying. Women they're supposed to stay at home, so it's okay, so we won't count them. Which is also sexist bullshit, but okay, whatever. The article also states that these guys seem happier. They say that they come up with this explanation, which kind of makes sense, but not really. That the imaginary world that they have in their video games are more enjoyable than the real one. Well, of course, if I can't afford school or get a decent job to get out of my parents' house or buy my own house, then yeah, I'll imagine something better. Which might contribute also to the opioid epidemic that we're having in this country. I'm just saying. And then the article ends with the warning that, quote, video games could ultimately cause a permanent downshift in U.S. growth. End quote. Really? What the fuck? I'm not understanding why that one video games thing is going to destroy our world. Like, okay, no. So I'm going to show a chart right now that shows the growth of college tuition. And there's 3 lines. We'll focus on the bottom one, just public schools, because most of us can't afford that, let alone private school. Yes, if you're smart enough, you can get a scholarship, but then that's not for the average person, right? So public in-state costs $2,500 in 1995-ish a year. Now it costs $10,000. That is a quadrupling of costs. Do you think this could be the culprit for less people attending college? No, it's not it. The price of college is irrelevant. It's all about video games. That's what this article is saying. And then in the little chart I'll show you, and I'll give you a link obviously in the description, it's only supposed to be a total of 55% increase. And they state that, let me read you the little article on the site. Dollar amounts in this chart have not been adjusted for inflation, so they're just the raw price. For reference, the total consumer price index inflation increase from 1995 through this first half of 2015 was 55.1%, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So tuition at a 4-year national university is outpacing inflation, and by a lot. And I'll show you that website, and I'll show you the link also. Alright. But no, ignore that. Ignore the cost and ignore the increase of also the percentage that Trump is going to do for college tuition loans. Ignore all that. It's video games. Okay, let's look at another chart. I copied and pasted it several times to fit the years from the other articles to compare it, year to year. I'm not going to be showing statistics from 1965 to 1985. No, I'm going to be consistent with the years that this article is showing. Look at the adjusted average salary. This is adjusted for inflation. Look at 1995. It's $45,000. Look at 2015. 20 years later, it's $50,000. Your salary went up by just over 10% over the last 20 years. Could this be the culprit of people not wanting to work that much anymore? Yeah, probably. And don't give me that bullshit that, well, people are getting lazier. No, we're not. Actually, we're working more than before. Just so we're saying, and we're working more than before because before we had more labor unions that prevented so much overtime pay, overtime work, which was paid, but it prevented more. Unions tend to reduce labor times in overtime, so they'll make you work full time, but then they'll throw less overtime at you. Now, without unions, basically, there's nobody to defend you. Oh, you need to work more time. Now it's like, oh, you need to work the Saturday or else you're fired. So basically, your salary went up by over a little bit of 10% over the last 20 years. Let's go with 10% just because to keep the numbers nice and even. The net inflation change has been 55%, which means that our salaries didn't go up with time from that previous article, or from the previous link I showed you, which is the the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can't get much more official statistics than that in our country. So our real purchasing power is actually less than before. What is purchasing power? It's what you can actually buy with the money you make. Let me throw a clear example for you guys that don't understand. So let's say that in 1995 you got paid $10 an hour. Okay. And in 1995, let's say 2 beers cost $10, $5 each. Great. So you work 1 hour, ignoring taxes and withholdings from your check, whatever. Just $10. You work for 1 hour. You can go to a bar and say, "Oh, let me have 2 beers. No tax, nothing. Just get 2 beers, right?" And you can afford that. You can't afford anything else, but you can buy that in this example. Now imagine in 2015, your salary went up by 10%, which is what we calculated from the 45 to 50,000 to $11 an hour. And then according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it actually went up by 55% on the price, not your salary, the price. So that means, let's go with 50% just to make it, again, nice, even numbers. So that means that your salary went up 10% from $10 to $11 an hour. And the beer went up in cost from $5 to $7.50, because $7.50 minus 5 is $2.50, and $2.50 is half of 5. So 50%, $2.50. That's $15 for both beers. Now, you go to the same bar with the same beer, and you have $11, you ask for 2 beers, it's not going to happen. They're only going to give you 1 because they won't sell you half a beer. I mean, you'll have a little bit of change left over, but you can't buy 2 beers anymore. Could rising costs and lowering real salaries be the cause for people not wanting to work and staying home and can't move out? No, it's because they want to play video games. So much bullshit in this article. Now, why am I mentioning all of this? I sound like I'm pissed off, which I am, because these articles are stupid, but they're not just talking about video games. There's other articles that try to scapegoat the problems of our society. I'm not an expert in this field, but I have read a little bit more than your average person, so if you want to talk to me about this topic, feel free to comment on the comments below. So, closing note. What does this all mean? It means that capitalism is failing. Now stick with me here. The once great contributions of capitalism in our nation and the world are no longer there. Both Republicans and Democrats support capitalism. The only real 2 challengers in office are Senator Bernie Sanders, and even he is still kind of a capitalist. But he just wants a nicer capitalism. Let's tax the rich to get rid of this income inequality, instead of tackling the problem of creating income inequality in the first place, which will be achieved by a different system, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he does want a nicer capitalism, right? He's talking about free college, free healthcare, which is great, which is nice. I support all that. That's good. We should have that, like any other rational country out there. But this nicer capitalism, we've tried that. It didn't work. All the progress, well, most of it anyway, that we made to make capitalism fairer after the Great Depression have been undone. most of the positive things that we've done have been undone, and now they're Republicans are talking about getting rid of the minimum wage, getting rid of Social Security, and some Democrats too. It's not just Republicans, but if you don't know about these changes, you can email me and ask me about it, and I'll link you to other videos if you want. And the other challenger is, and the reason why I don't explain this here is because it'll take many, many, many hours. But the other challenger is Shama Sawant. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's an Indian woman. She is a city council member for Seattle. She's helping her constituents a lot, so please look her up. Okay, that was a side note, but like I was saying, capitalism is failing, and its supporters, both Republicans and Democrats, need to justify keeping it in our society. Usually they blame lazy people, like the 47% Mitt Romney talked about that ruined his campaign, or they will blame minorities and new immigrants. Hispanics are the latest victims of this scapegoating. I also read another article blaming millennials, or the young people, for failing sit-down restaurants. Again, could it be that maybe we're not making as much money as our parents? And a lot of statistics will support that statement I just made, where our generation, and I'm a millennial, is the first generation that will actually live on average, have a lower, what do you call that? Our generation is the first generation to have a lower standard of living than the previous one before, because on average, people would always live better than their parents, than their generation before, but that's not the case anymore. Now it's actually going down. Or even people like Bernie and Shama Sawant, they blame the super wealthy in their greed, which is part of the problem, I agree. But what Ms. Sawant actually does talk about is real solutions. The wealthy company owners blame the government with too much oversight and regulations, and there's and other companies that aren't as big, but they need to blame somebody else. They blame trade deals. That's gained popularity lately with our new president. But the fact is that capitalism has always produced gross inequality, and it is now failing. Wherever it has been used as the system of choice, there have been ups and downs, and we just take that as a given side effect. Am I a socialist? No. Am I a communist? No. Both those failed as well. Am I pro-government intervene and regulate everything and buy everything? No, I am not. I don't like the government any more than I do greedy private corporations. But there is another solution that I think we can look at. And instead of blaming video games for lack of productivity, instead of blaming immigrants, instead of blaming the wealthy, which we all play by the same rules in capitalism, more or less. I mean, some people do break the law and break the rules, but the whole end goal is to get as much profit as you can. And then you don't care about the other people, you don't care about the workers, you just make as much money as you want. So instead of blaming and scapegoating all these different little sections in our economy that, if you look at it by themselves, yes, that's a problem. Could some video games make some people quit school and quit work? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that video games have never produced anything bad in a person, but those people were probably already unstable, or they were already thinking about quitting their job. They just pushed them forward a little bit, But side note. But capitalism is failing now. The only way I see this being fixed is through democracy. And I mean real democracy. We as Americans love democracy. We rub it in other nations' faces that don't have it. We flaunt it, and we should. It's great. I love democracy. I really do. I'm not being sarcastic. I really do. But capitalism, the way this economic system we have, is not democratic at all. It's actually the quite opposite of democracy. If we love democracy so much, then we should apply it to the part of our adult lives where we spend the most time, at work. At work, you don't vote, and what happens with the product or service, time management, or how to use the profits created by your own very same work, your sweat and your brains, you don't have anything to say in that. That's not a democracy at all. Work is not a democracy, not the corporations, how they're structured right now anyway. You are told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and where to do it. And usually the supervisor tells you who is directed by the manager, who is told by the district manager maybe, in a bigger corporation, who is told by the vice president, who is told by the CEO, who is then controlled by the shareholders, usually a group of 20 wealthy individuals. Until we are brave enough to call out the obvious problem, the capitalistic structure of corporations, we are going to keep scapegoating. And democracy at the workplace has gained momentum lately. Work co-ops and worker self-directed enterprises are more popular now. So, and with other people that tell you, video games are the problem, and they don't say, well, no, that's just how life is. Well, you're right, that is how life is. But there's something that we can do to mitigate that problem of the whole system being corrupt and not working for the mass majority of people. Let me know what you guys think. Those are my thoughts on that. I don't have time to go over every single little detail of this, and I don't have enough time to defend my point of views on everything that I've said here. But if you really want to engage in a rational adult discussion about this with me, feel free to comment and I'll respond. Be respectful. I know what's going to happen. People are going to go, oh, you're a communist, you're a socialist, you want the government to take everything. No, I don't. But if you really want to talk about this